Hello and welcome to Optimizing and Securing Workloads in AWS. Today's webinar is brought to you by Gigamon, AWS, and Presidio, and produced by Actual Tech Media. My name is Scott Becker. I'm from Actual Tech Media, and I'm excited to be your moderator for this special event. Now, before we get to today's great content, we do have a few housekeeping items that will help you get the most out of this session. First off, we want this to be an informative event for you, so we encourage any questions in the questions box in our webinar control panel. Now, while we won't have a dedicated live Q&A portion at the end, our speakers will be able to see your questions in the Q&A panel as they come in, and it may guide our discussion today based on those questions. They'll also be able to respond to some of your questions in chat, and we'll be able to respond after the event as well. Excuse me, frog in my throat. That Q&A panel is also the place to let us know about any technical issues that you may be experiencing. A browser refresh will fix most audio, visual, and slide advancement issues. But if that doesn't work, just let us know in the Q&A and we'll provide further technical assistance. Second, in the handout section of your webinar control panel, you'll find that we're offering several resources. There's a Gigamon product tour, a Gigamon for AWS test drive, and a nice PDF booklet on cloud visibility with Hawk by Gigamon. Also in your handout section, there's a link to the Gorilla Guide Book Club where you can get access to Actual Tech Media's great printed resources on technology topics, as well as a link to the ATM Event Center, which has our calendar of upcoming events. So I encourage you to access those resources now and share them with your friends and colleagues. Third, at the end of this webinar event, we will be awarding a $300 Amazon gift card to one lucky registrant. Of course, you must be in attendance during the live event to qualify for the prize. The official terms and conditions of today's prize drawing can be found in the handout section. Just scroll to the bottom and you'll find the prize terms and conditions link there. Finally, one of the best benefits of this event is the opportunity to ask a question of our expert presenters. And to help encourage your questions, we have a special additional prize for you. That's another Amazon gift card, this one for $50 for the best question. Again, we won't have a live Q&A portion at the end, but we'll be looking at the questions throughout and responding afterward. And with that, let's get to today's fantastic content. It's my pleasure to introduce you to our presenters today. We have Bret Gessner, who is Senior Cloud Channel Sales Engineer at Gigamon. We have Faisal Pias, who's Senior Partner Solutions Architect at Amazon Web Services. And we have Jonathan Mahoney, who's Director of Cybersecurity at Presidio. So Bret, Faisal, Jonathan, welcome to the webinar. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, it's great to be here. Thanks, Scott.
Thanks for having me.
Well, I'll turn things over to Bret to get us started.
Yeah, again, thanks, Scott, and thanks for all the attendees that joined today. We really appreciate the time. We just wanted to do a real quick 10 seconds on each of us, kind of our background. So I'll just start. My background is heavy in public cloud. That's kind of all I've been doing for the past 7 years, both in a pre-sales capacity and a post-sales capacity as well. And now I'm at Gigamon. So I'll pass it over to Faisal.
Sure. Hey, so my background is primarily on networking and network security. I've been with AWS for a little over 8 years, and most of this time I have been in customer-facing roles, helping customers architect solutions using the AWS networking and security services. Right now, I work primarily with our ISV partners on the networking and security segments to help develop joint solutions for our customers, and also find out innovative ways to solve the different complex problems that our customers present to us.
All right, perfect. And I'm Jonathan
Awesome.
Mahoney,
Thank you,
Director of
Faisal.
Security here at Presidio. I've been here going on 12 years now. So I've got a technical background, also GRC. So I've spent a lot of times now helping customers secure not only on-prem workloads, but a lot in the cloud workloads like AWS. So thanks everybody for coming.
Awesome. Thanks, Jonathan. All right, let's jump into it, shall we? All right, so we've already gone through that. All right, so the agenda for today, right? And we want to keep this as interactive as possible. So, we're kind of going to be asking questions amongst ourselves. We don't want to PowerPoint you to death. I know how fun those presentations are. So first, we'll talk about security considerations and best practices in the cloud, specifically AWS. We'll do a quick Gigamon review, just a few seconds there, because I know the topic of today is securing workloads in AWS, but kind of how we play into that. And then we'll talk about how Presidio helps customers with AWS solutions. And then we'll wrap it up. So let's get started. All right, so those of us that have been in IT a while, this probably looks really familiar. I like to keep things really simple, so this is a crayon slide, right? Maybe some of y'all have seen this before, but this is what we face really in the network a lot of the times, right? We have so many different tools in different parts of the stack, right, that are, you know, feeding traffic into different things, whether it's firewalls, whether it's APMs, whether it's SIEMs. But the problem that we see a lot of times within the network or within deployments is there's a lot of ad hoc deployment, and it's not necessarily bespoke to what the organization wants, right? A lot of times you have users configuring their own pieces of infrastructure. And what does that do? It creates disorganization, it creates complexity, and also creates, quite frankly, a lot of security vulnerabilities a lot of the times. Jonathan, I'm sure you probably see this every day in your role.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I've spent a lot of time designing networks, designing on-prem networks, and exactly what you're talking about here, you know, is even more so going to the cloud. So I could not agree more.
Yep. So we've probably all seen this, but you know, it is important to cover, right? I still talk to customers to this day. I talk to thousands of customers over the past 7 years, and I still hear it. I'm in the cloud, so I'm secure. Couldn't be further from the truth, right? You know, there's certain things that AWS are responsible for, basically their hardware and infrastructure, compute, storage, networking, database services. But it's up to the customer, right, or the users and consumers of cloud to secure those applications. Quite frankly, a lot of times when I talk to customers, you know, we can talk about brute force attacks and SQL injection and, you know, a lot of the different kind of vulnerabilities and attacks out there. But quite frankly, a lot of times I see vulnerabilities within identity and access management. So I was working with a telecommunications company that basically their policy was, okay, everyone gets an AWS subscription, right? And you have privileges across the board. You can do whatever you want. Well, that's kind of a problem, right? So that's just kind of one of the consistent themes I've seen over the years. But I think it is important to understand that, right? So Faisal, what do you see as the biggest security considerations and best practices for a customer looking to move to the cloud from the get-go?
Sure, Bret. So I just start by saying that AWS has been architected to be the most flexible and secure cloud computing environment available today. Now, one security consideration that is very different from on-premises deployments is the concept of shared responsibility model, as you were mentioning earlier. Now, in a typical on-premises security model, customers are responsible for end-to-end security of their entire infrastructure. Now at AWS, we have a shared responsibility model where AWS manages and controls the components from the host operating system and virtualization layer down to the physical security of the facilities in which the services operate. And AWS customers are responsible for building secure applications. So anything at the application level are a responsibility of the customer. Now, in this model, customers retain full control of the security they implement to protect their own content at AWS. Now, we do provide a wide variety of best practices, documents, encryption tools, and other guidance that our customers can leverage in delivering application-level security measures. Then we have a large network of partners who can help our customers secure their workloads in AWS, both during migrations and after migrations. Now, in addition to taking advantage of the native AWS security services and partner solutions that are available in AWS, our customers really appreciate how the AWS WellArchitected Framework has evolved over the years and the security guidance it provides when a customer migrates the new workloads into the cloud. This framework is built on a set of best practices for operating workloads in AWS. So for example, during a review cycle for your workload, you can double check if you have MFA properly enabled on your account, or if you are implementing the principles of least privilege, or how you're protecting your data both at rest and in transit. We have seen our customers adopting the well-architected framework and making it an integral checkpoint for any new workload they move into the cloud. So these are, at a high level, some of the security considerations I wanted to mention, and I'm sure we'll talk more as our discussion progresses.
Outstanding. And I think another thing to mention as well, Faisal was talking about partners that can help implement, those security best practices and quite frankly, remediation a lot of times as well. And I know Jonathan's going to get into that later, Presidio being one of those partners. I did want to highlight, though, we kind of jumped ahead to well-architected, but that was great, Faisal. But just kind of what I've seen over the years, and this isn't something published out there. This is kind of my own opinion. What does a successful cloud journey look like? And what I've noticed over the years is there's really three key phases, in my opinion, right? The first being the assessment phase, right? So understanding what's on premises today, understanding application interdependencies, understanding where you might have some limitations, where you might not be able to move a specific workload to cloud right away, doing POCs. That could include doing, test dev workloads, moving something that's not mission critical into the cloud. So that's really the assessment phase. And then the build phase, right? So now we're talking about actually moving infrastructure into cloud. I kind of don't like the word lift and shift, but there's a lot of that out there as well. So taking applications and just kind of lifting them into cloud, whether that's using VMs or even quite frankly using the cloud for DR, right? Pacification, that's another kind of buzzword I've heard out there these days. So taking an application and running it as a platform as a service. A good example of that is take a SQL server and run it as an RDS instance in AWS, right? And also building out building the foundation, right? So building out your VPCs, building out direct connect, building out firewalls, load balancers, IAM policies, things of that nature. And then the third phase is the optimization phase, right? So now we're talking about, okay, we're in cloud. How do we take advantage of automated deployments, whether that's using cloud formation templates, maybe you're using Terraform, maybe you're using Ansible, things of that nature, right? I talk to so many customers, right? And they say, okay, I've moved to cloud and I'm spending too much money. And then you start kind of peeling back the onion a little bit and you realize, okay, well, you're not using automation technology. You're not even using things as simple as scaling groups, right? Also setting up monitoring and cost optimization as well. And the nice thing is, all three of us, whether it's Presidio, AWS, Gigamon, we play a role in all three of these phases. I know Jonathan's going to talk about kind of some of the customers they've worked with as well.
Yeah, and just one note on
any
this.
comments, Jonathan?
Yeah, from your build and optimize phase, this is where I usually questions like, what security controls do we need in place? Faisal mentioned the shared security, the shared responsibility model earlier. I think what we're seeing is when we're taking on-prem data or applications to the cloud, it gets very confusing quickly. Sometimes customers are like, well, what do I need here? What do I need? And it's like, when we're talking to customers, it's like, we need to look at the classification and the risk level of the data information in there. And if you've got a set of controls or a standard of controls on-prem, you need to actually have that in the cloud as well. So making sure you have the right firewalls in place, you have identity and access management, you have all those other pieces to maintain a consistent security posture there. And I think the other one where we've seen huge strides, especially with things like with AWS specifically, is in monitoring. Like once these applications are up, can we monitor the traffic? Can we monitor behavior? And that was really hard to do in the cloud 4 or 5 years ago. But now in AWS, that's a crucial part of it is like, we can look at what the traffic is. We can identify threats and identify anomalies. So looking at having the right controls up front, and then from a monitoring standpoint, continuously watching for that stuff as well.
Absolutely, yep. So we went through well-architected. All right, so just a really quick commercial on Gigamon and what we do. So Gigamon, we're absolutely about network visibility, right? So we can take packets from anywhere, right? Whether it's in the cloud, whether it's on premises, and we can send them to appropriate tooling, whether that tooling's in the cloud or on-prem. So SIM tools, APMs, firewalls, right? We're able to aggregate that traffic and send it accordingly. I'm sure there's quite a few of you that are attending today. I'm sure you're familiar with us. But really this slide, it's kind of complicated, but I'll go through it quickly. I mean, from the bottom up, right? So we have our both physical and cloud virtual appliances that are able to be deployed. Our GigaView OS is kind of the engine or the brain that powers, right? These devices, right? So with OS, you're doing things like flow mapping and filtering, load balancing, fabric mapping, things of that nature. And then you go to kind of the next level, right? And now we start getting into, being able to take those packets and using things like dedupe, TLS decryption, packet flow and slicing. So again, think of us as kind of that central hub to take that traffic and send it accordingly, right? And then GigaView FM, which is Fabric Manager, is our management and orchestration engine. It's basically the GUI where you control all of these different features and functionalities, right? And then the last thing I'll just say is Threat Insight. So that's our network threat detection and response solution, which is a pretty slick solution. We could spend all day talking about it. But basically what we're doing is we're enabling your specific, your respective SOCs, right, with threat mitigation. So really, really awesome tool there. All right, cloud security with AWS. All right, Faisal, do you want to cover these native tools?
Sure. So as you can see, so at AWS, we do try to group our security services by a specific segment described in the AWS WellArchitected Framework for security. So these areas are like identity access management, detection, infrastructure protection, data protection, incident response, and compliance and governance. And what you see, each of these services are built to solve a specific customer use case. So for example, AWS Security Hub, which is a cloud security posture management solution, it provides you an overall visibility into your infrastructure and the resources running in the cloud, not only in one account, but across your AWS organizations. Then you have Amazon Guard Duty, which is a threat detection solution that continuously looks for signs by integrating with other security solutions and generate alerts, and also provides you options to automatically remediate some of these findings. Like under the hood, you will see these services integrate with other AWS services, like the different sources of the logs, like VPC flow logs, which captures network level traffic information, or CloudTrail, which collects audit data based on what each of your users are doing in their AWS accounts. So we won't go over all these services individually, but I highly encourage you to take a look at the AWS security homepage and see which of these native services make sense for your specific use case. One thing I wanted to point out here is AWS's core infrastructure is built to satisfy the security requirements for the military, global banks, and other highly sensitive organizations. So this is backed by a deep set of cloud security tools with more than 230 security, compliance, and governance services and key features. So the services that we are highlighting here on the screen, like for under each of these services, we have many key security features that you will see might help solve a particular security use case that you may have. And in addition to this, AWS also supports about 98 security standards and compliance certifications. So if you have a workload where you have a specific compliance requirement, chances are AWS already provides you the services by using which you can meet those certification requirements. And these certifications help satisfy compliance requirements for virtually every regulatory agency around the globe. Just to I'll just repeat something I mentioned earlier. Like AWS has the largest and most dynamic community of partners. So AWS partners offer hundreds of tools and features that help customers meet their security objectives. So if you need help with your security implementation in AWS, I would highly encourage reach out to your partners, and see how the partners can help share the knowledge that they have gained by working with other customers implementing security controls for their AWS accounts. Okay, back to you, Bret.
No, that's outstanding. Thanks, Fazil. And I'll also mention too, Google search, if you do AWS Reference Architecture Center, there's a great reference architecture center where you can look at, there's dozens of reference architectures as well as a lot of information on the WellArchitected Framework. And Jonathan, I know you're going to go through, how your team implements a lot of these tool sets as well for customers.
Yeah, absolutely. And something Faisal said really resonates, because for a long time, security was the group who didn't want to go to the cloud because the cloud was insecure. Like, I completely disagree with that. We actually started, a number of years ago, moving customers to AWS for security, to leverage GovCloud, to leverage other compliance controls. So often customers are going like, hey, I need to keep my most sensitive data on-prem. In a lot of cases, we took the most sensitive data from on-prem to AWS to be more secure. Like, as you said, most customers do not have all the security certifications that AWS has. Just by the nature of it, the public cloud shouldn't be seen as less secure. Often it's more secure. So security shouldn't be a reason not to go to the cloud. It's actually one of our main drivers.
Thanks, Jonathan. And then here's just an example of AWS solution architecture, right? So there's a new feature out called Gateway Load Balancer Endpoint, right? So traditionally, when you were using VPC traffic mirroring, right, you would have different VPCs. You're sending the traffic from those VPCs to different shared services hubs, for example. Now with Gateway Load Balancer, you're able to take traffic from multiple VPCs, multiple subscriptions either, to a central point, right? Gigamon was actually one of the first to integrate with Gateway Load Balancer, so you can see that in the architecture diagram here. It's going to our V-Series, which is the engine that lives in the cloud, and you can see Fabric Manager, which is the orchestrator for all of that. Faisal, would you agree that's a good summation of Gateway Load Balancer?
Yeah, and I can add to that. So I think it would also help giving a little insight into what the VPC traffic mirroring does. And for those of you who are already using the Gigamon solution with VPC traffic mirroring, might know this. It captures the networking packets from each endpoint running within a VPC and mirrors that to a particular destination. So in this case, we are showing an example of Gigamon solutions. Receiving those live mirror traffic and then doing further analysis to give you security insights. Now, previously, before we had a Gateway Load Balancer integration, whenever customers wanted to do centralized monitoring of their live traffic mirroring traffic, this was possible using cross-account sharing, but that model could lead into routing complexity depending on customers' existing overall network. Now, Gateway Load Balancer actually solves that. By using Gateway Load Balancers, customer can easily centralize their traffic monitoring appliances, and mirror traffic can be forwarded from any subnet, VPC, or account to a highly scalable and operationally efficient manner. And this happens via the Gateway Load Balancer endpoints that are deployed in customer subnets containing their workloads. If this new model of doing VPC traffic mirroring is interesting to you, definitely take a look at the blog that Bret referenced here, it does also discuss some of the common architecture patterns that you can actually solve by using gateway load balancer and VPC traffic minuting together.
Awesome. Thank you. All right. I'm going to kick it over to Jonathan. He's going to talk through Presidio's AWS solutions and some use cases and how they've helped customers here.
Absolutely. Thanks for passing over. So when people look at Presidio, a lot of people know us as a reseller of hardware and other things here. What a lot of people don't know is we're one of the actually largest AWS partners out there. So when you look at when we're talking to customers, and I'm out talking to customers, it's about three things. It's about cloud and applications, it's around security, and it's around operations and monitoring. So really all three of the things we're talking about today. And really what we're doing is when we're talking to customers now is taking a look at what workloads they have, what workloads make sense to move to the cloud in a cloud right strategy, but helping them understand, how they're going to move forward in that case. And for some customers I mentioned earlier, we want to move them to the cloud for security reasons. So we have an example. I had a defense contractor last year where they had to meet CMMC compliance. So that basically means the customer had to meet about 170 different controls for any system that held Department of Defense data. So when the customer came to us and said, hey, how can we go secure this? Our first answer was go into AWS for this data, leverage the AWS controls and the compliance requirements. And now from a security perspective, you're not responsible for all that stuff down. You're responsible for the application and the data up, which is a lot smaller subset. So instead of having to re-architect parts of the network, put in secure enclaves, put in firewalls, to put in monitoring for just those enclaves, we could leverage AWS and the AWS monitoring capabilities to do that. So instead of spending 6 months building that environment internally, we took a look at the application, built an IaaS environment in AWS to meet those compliance requirements, and then help the customer actually start to go through the CMMC compliance requirements pieces there. So that's one of the big areas we have is can we take sensitive applications, sensitive data, remove them from your on-prem environment and move them to the cloud? And a lot of people, I think it's a very overused term, use the term zero trust. Trying to do zero trust on an on-prem network and start to do isolation is pretty difficult to do, especially if you've got a network and applications that have been flat for the last 10, 15, 20 years. We can enable zero trust quickly for the most sensitive assets by putting them in an AWS environment and having that environment isolated from the main network. It's way easier than trying to reverse engineer what was going on. So that's, looking at zero trust, looking at how we secure applications in the cloud is a big part of it. What a lot of people don't realize too is from a Presidio standpoint, not only doing security, but networking and data center and all those pieces. But we made a huge investment in our application team too. So we've got over 400 developers and public cloud resources who are focused on helping customers take their workloads from on-prem, move them into an IaaS environment, move them into a PaaS environment, secure those environments, and then monitor those things 24/7, 365. It's a huge tenet. When you're having any conversation at this point, it's much less about networking and data center and on-prem security versus business transformation, workload transformation, and securing that stuff going forward.
Awesome.
Yeah, so I kind of touched on the why Presidio piece. As I mentioned, we are one of the largest AWS partners out there. We hold a ton of certifications here. And important in my business as well is leveraging AWS as a buying mechanism. What we also see with customers is when they're going to procure security tools and security subscriptions and looking at marketplace is can we leverage things like their EDP and their spend with AWS to better leverage that. So we have a large number of customers who have guaranteed spend with AWS over the next 3 to 5 years. And one of the things we're seeing more and more as they build these environments out, as they build this out, buying the tooling through AWS in order to burn down some of that EDP, leverage better pricing as well. So when we look at it from a cloud perspective, it's really two main areas for us. It's around helping customers migrate those applications, those clouds, secure them, and then also leveraging the AWS marketplace to implement the controls for the environment all in one spot. There's a ton of advantage of it from a purchasing standpoint, EDP burn down standpoint, also getting a central view of all your software and subscriptions all in one place. But we're seeing this more and more with customers as one of their main buying mechanisms is directly with us and AWS together.
Yep, it's key. Yeah, I mean that you couldn't have said it better. I mean, having almost your own curated AWS marketplace. I mean, Gigamon were in CPPO program as well. So, yeah, that was great. Thank you, Jonathan. And that is really all the content that we had today. We really appreciate everybody jumping on. Scott, I'll kick it back over to you.
Okay, thanks, Bret, Faisal, and Jonathan. It was a great discussion. Really appreciate your time today.
Yep, no problem.
Thanks for the opportunity.
And we do have a couple of polls for you before we go. So the first one is, what's your time frame for adding new or updating existing IT solutions at your company? So I'll just give everybody just a minute to respond to that one. The time frames there are 0 to 6 months, 6 to 12 months, 12 to 24 months, and not sure. We got the responses rolling in here. Leave that up for just a little bit. Appreciate everybody who has clicked on one of those. And we'll have one more poll after this one. And then we will get to our $300 Amazon prize drawing. And if you have answered the poll already, just a quick reminder about the handout section. There's the Gigamon product tour in there, the test drive, and the cloud visibility booklet. So 3 great resources in there. Okay, thanks to everybody who's answered this poll. We'll just move on to the final poll for the day, which is, what additional information would you like about the Gigamon solution? Options there are data sheet, white paper, case study, price details, personal demo, like to try for yourself, and a couple others. So we'll leave that up there. You can see the responses coming in. Appreciate that. And I will leave that poll up there for 1 minute while we take care of our final piece of business, which is the $300 Amazon gift card prize drawing. And the winner of that gift card is Rick Monier from Pennsylvania. So congratulations to Rick Monier. We'll be in touch to get you your card. And with that, on behalf of the Actual Tech Media team, I want to thank Gigamon, AWS, and Presidio for making this event possible. And thanks as always for attending and for your questions. That concludes today's event. Have a great rest of your day.